Hey there, night owls and thrill seekers. Welcome to Midnight Surge, where the shadows whisper and the dark holds secrets you can't unhear. If you're into this kind of chill, hit that subscribe button down below. Join the crew who never sleep easy, and let's dive into the dark together. Ready? Here's tonight's story. I moved to Asheville last fall for a quieter life. After 10 years of bouncing between tech contracts and roommates in Atlanta, I was ready for stillness. I rented a modest cottage-style home on the edge of town. Pine trees thick along the sides, the Blue Ridge Mountains behind it, and only a thin, winding road connecting it to the rest of the world. It was just me and a little backyard studio I planned to turn into a workspace. By November, I was going through the last of my boxes, trying to reclaim some space before winter set in. That's when I found my old corded gear. A DeWalt jigsaw, a Ryobi sander, a small toolbox I hadn't opened since Austin. All of it still worked. But I had a new battery-powered set, and the cords felt like a hassle now. I figured I'd list them on a resale site, Craigslist. Less sketchy, supposedly. I made a post. Workshop tools, clean, functional. $90 for the whole set. Didn't take long for pings to come in. Most were bots or bargain hunters trying to offer $30 and a smile. But one stood out. A man named Ricky M. messaged me with clear questions. Still available? Can I pick up tonight? Cash okay? He even used punctuation, which was rare enough. Sure, I typed back. I'm around after 6. My place is out by Elkwood Hill. Can meet you in the driveway. He replied, Sounds good. I drive a black Jeep. See you then. At 5:30, it was already dim. That kind of mountain dusk that bleeds the color out of the sky. Makes the trees look like paper cutouts. I set the tools out on the folding table by the garage. No lights on outside, just the fading blue of evening and the muffled quiet that comes when the wind stills. At exactly 6:04, headlights crawled up the gravel. Black Jeep. He pulled up just shy of the house. A man stepped out, maybe mid-30s, shaved head, puffy orange jacket. He didn't wave, didn't smile. Just walked straight toward the table like he already knew the layout. Evening, I offered, trying to sound casual. He looked down at the tools, didn't reply right away. These yours? He finally asked. Yeah, used them for about a year. Still run fine. He picked up the sander, ran his hand along the cord like he was testing its weight. Then he looked up. Would you take 50? I hesitated. I've already got 2 others lined up if this falls through. 90's fair. He didn't argue, just nodded slowly, then turned and walked back toward the Jeep. For a second, I thought he was getting the cash, but he just got in and drove away. No word. Just gone. I stood there in the gravel, hands cold, watching the tail lights vanish between the trees. Something about it didn't sit right. Not just the way he left, but the way he moved. Like he was rehearsing something. Like all this was just the warm-up. That night was quiet. Too quiet. No wind, no crickets. Even the occasional owl that haunted the pines was silent. Around 9:45, I was on the couch, half watching some crime doc, when I noticed the motion light in the backyard flicker on, a dull white glow that spilled across the dead leaves. I muted the TV, listened, nothing, but then I remembered. The tools. I hadn't brought them in. Maybe that guy came back. Maybe he changed his mind. I opened the front door and stepped outside. Cold air, sharp and still. The driveway was empty. No Jeep, no footsteps. just the faint whine of wind through the trees. I walked around the side toward the backyard, past the garage. The folding table was still there, tools untouched. Then I heard it, a click, soft, mechanical, like a switch being flipped inside the garage. The garage was closed. I knew it was locked. I always kept it locked. Hadn't even gone in that day. I froze, watched the door. Nothing moved. After a minute, I backed away. Told myself it was probably the water heater or a critter. But I locked the front door behind me anyway. Drew the blinds. At 11, someone knocked. Not hard, not frantic. Just a dull, deliberate rhythm. 3 short raps. I didn't move. Then came the voice. "Hey, man. Sorry to bug you. I've got the cash now." It was him. Ricky, the guy from earlier. But something was wrong with his voice. Too cheerful, too smooth. Like it was being read off a page. I didn't answer. I backed down the hall, phone in hand, already dialing 911. He knocked again, then waited. Then again, louder this time. I could hear the dispatcher on the line. "Units en route. Stay on the line." Then silence outside. A minute passed, maybe 2. I crept back toward the front room. The motion light clicked on again. But this time, from the side of the house, the narrow strip between my window and the neighbor's fence. I didn't look out. Then something scraped against the siding, followed by a loud, wet thump. And suddenly, silence. When the police got there, they found no one at the door. But a ladder had been dragged from behind the shed and propped under the second-story window, the one I always cracked open for fresh air. The screen was ripped. A deep scrape marked the shingles beneath it, like someone had slipped trying to pull themselves up. They found muddy footprints behind the garage, and a phone. Not mine. Inside it was just one thing. A draft message. Unsent. "He stays alone. No cameras. Lights out by midnight. No contacts, no name. The cops couldn't trace it. Said it might have been a burner. They took a report, drove off, and promised to keep an eye on the area." That was 6 months ago. I haven't used Craigslist since. I keep every window locked, even in summer. But sometimes I still hear things. A knock that doesn't match the wind. A scrape outside when I know no branches hang there. And every now and then, I check the garage door. Sometimes it's open, just an inch. I moved to Eastern Oregon in the spring of 2018. I'd left behind a tech job in Spokane after a bad breakup and a worse winter, needing something slower and simpler. Found a remote freelance gig, sold most of what I owned, and started looking for a place outside city limits. Rent was steep even back then, so I looked at shared housing. I found a post on Craigslist. A guy named Lucas Kane was renting out a room in a house he said he inherited from his uncle. It was about 25 minutes outside of Pendleton, surrounded by fields and low hills. His messages were friendly, grammar intact, and the photos of the house were plain but clean, a little old-fashioned. Hardwood floors, pale blue walls. We spoke on the phone twice. He sounded laid back. Said he worked nights at the grain elevator in town and kept to himself. I liked that. I didn't need another social roommate situation. I just wanted quiet. I drove out to meet him that weekend. The place was farther out than I expected. It sat on a patch of dry land off a 2-lane highway, past a line of tall birch trees that looked dead even in spring. The house was older than in the photos. Wooden siding faded gray, porch steps warped, one shutter missing. But Lucas was already on the porch when I pulled up, and he gave me a small wave. He was in his early 30s, tall and lean, pale like he hadn't seen the sun in years. He had soft features, brown hair combed neatly, and a voice that didn't match his face. Too smooth, like he rehearsed every word. But he was polite, offered me iced tea, and showed me around. The inside was nicer than I expected. Lived in, but clean. The walls were a little bare, and the lighting had that yellow, old lamp glow that made everything feel quieter than it was. My room was down the hall from his. Queen bed, wide window, desk already there. It felt still, peaceful. There was one door at the end of the hallway that was shut. Lucas noticed me glance at it. Storage. Old junk. I haven't cleaned it out, he said. Should probably keep it shut. Not great insulation in there. I nodded. Didn't think much of it. Every old house has a weird corner. I moved in 2 days later. The first week went smoothly. Lucas wasn't home much, and when he was, he mostly kept to himself. He worked nights, true to his word, and came home just after dawn. I'd usually hear the creak of the front door, his boots crossing the floor, then his bedroom door closing. After that, silence. But by the second week, things changed. I started noticing sounds. At night, when he was supposedly gone. The floor creaked gently after midnight. Once I thought I heard breathing outside my door. Not loud, just a soft exhale, like someone pressing their ear to the wood. I told myself it was pipes. This was an old house. Everything creaked. Then one night, I got up around 1 a.m. to grab water. I opened my door and froze. The light at the end of the hallway, the one above that storage room, was on. Lucas's door was open. No sound. I walked slowly toward the kitchen, keeping one eye down the hall. The storage room door was slightly ajar. A faint draft blew from it, carrying a musty, earthy smell, like wet concrete and cold dust. I didn't look inside. When I asked Lucas about it the next day, he just said, "Must have forgotten to close it before work." But I knew he wasn't gone that night. I'd heard nothing. No boots, no door, no truck. By the third week, I stopped sleeping. Every night, the same pattern. After midnight, the house would shift. I'd hear movement, soft steps, deliberate. Once, I saw a shadow pause beneath the crack in my door. It lingered, then turned and walked away. The storage room door was always closed by morning. Lucas never mentioned it again. I started thinking about leaving. I even packed a duffel one night, but I wanted proof. Some piece of evidence that my gut wasn't just being paranoid. So on a Thursday night, I stayed up. Lights off. Door slightly open. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding my phone, recording in case anything happened. At 12:37 a.m., I heard his door creak open. Soft footsteps crossed the floor. They stopped outside my door. I held my breath. The shadow was there again, motionless. I could hear it, breathing. Then it moved on, but instead of going toward the front of the house, it turned toward the far end of the hall, and I heard the sound of a key turning in a lock. A door creaked open, and then silence. I slipped out of bed, heart pounding. My feet were bare, floorboards cold. I crept down the hallway, holding my phone like a weapon. The storage room door was cracked open. I pushed it gently. It wasn't a storage room. There were stairs, wooden, steep, leading down into darkness. No light switch, just the smell. Stronger now. Mold, dust, something faintly metallic. I whispered, "Lucas." Nothing. No response. No sound, no breathing. I took one step down. I raised my phone, trying to shine the flashlight. But just as I did, a loud scraping echoed from below. Not close, but not far either. Like furniture dragged across concrete. I turned and ran. No hesitation. Grabbed my bag. Keys. shoes in hand. I was in my car and on the road in less than 2 minutes. Didn't stop until I hit the city limits. I never went back. Never spoke to Lucas again. Never heard from him. 5 years later, out of curiosity, I looked up the property on a real estate site. It was gone. Torn down. The listing history just said, demolished following unresolved investigation. I dug deeper. One article. No names, just evidence of unlawful detainment and structural anomalies were found beneath the property. Nature of findings sealed from a public record. There was one detail that stuck with me, though. A small line buried near the end. No official resident was recorded at the address after April 2018. Utilities, however, remained active and monitored. For 4 months afterward, I moved out in April, and Lucas, he never left with me. I'd just moved to Rockford, Illinois after a breakup that left me emotionally and financially gutted. It was early fall, the kind of season where the air turns brittle and the daylight dies faster than it should. I'd picked up a contract job at a local auto body shop and rented a cheap duplex on the edge of town, where the wind carried the smell of dry leaves and distant bonfires. The place was empty when I moved in. No couch, no kitchen table. Just my bed on the floor and some thrifted lamps with fraying cords. I had a little 24-inch TV I kept on a milk crate, but the living room felt hollow. I wanted something to fill the space. Not even for entertainment. More like a placeholder for comfort. Something lit. Something loud. You know. I checked Craigslist during my lunch breaks. Most of the listings were people offloading busted junk or absurdly overpriced screens. But then I found one that caught my eye. 42. Panasonic Plasma. Good condition. $50. Need gone by weekend. No name on the listing, just a first initial. D. The photo was grainy and dim, like it had been taken in a basement or a room with blackout curtains. The screen looked intact, though, and $50 was a steal. I messaged the seller. They replied fast. Overly polite, actually. Said their name was Dorian, and that the TV was still available. They even offered to help me load it into my car if I came by that evening. Said they'd set everything up by 7i. I asked for the address. He gave it. A street off an old service road, not far from where the river splits the town. Google Maps showed it as a house at the end of a cul-de-sac, bordered by woods on one side and a fenced-in junkyard on the other. I remember hesitating. Something about the way he wrote, overly formal, like a script, rubbed me the wrong way. But I brushed it off. People are weird on Craigslist all the time. At 6:40, I left work, grabbed cash from the gas station ATM, and headed out. By the time I pulled up, the sky was turning deep purple. There were no streetlights down that road, and the only light came from a flickering porch bulb swaying slightly in the breeze. The house itself looked off. Too dark. No signs of life inside. The blinds were drawn, and I couldn't see a TV glowing anywhere inside. Still, I parked, left the engine running. The porch steps creaked under my boots. When I got close enough, I realized the door wasn't fully shut, just resting in the frame. I knocked anyway. 3 soft knocks. Nothing. Then, from somewhere deep in the house, maybe behind a hallway or down a stairwell, I heard something drop. Not like a phone. Heavier. A thud that seemed to shake something loose in the walls, then silence. I pulled my hand away from the door. I should have left right then, but I didn't. Curiosity's a cruel thing. I knocked again, louder. A few seconds later, the door creaked inward about 6 inches. A voice came from behind it, low, muffled. Yeah? I leaned slightly to see. A figure, maybe in his 40s, peered out from behind the doorframe. Hey, I'm here about the TV. You said 7. He stared at me for a long second, as if trying to place me, then finally opened the door wider. His hand was behind the frame the whole time. I noticed his knuckles were red, like he'd scraped them against pavement or brick. Right. Come in. Something about his voice made the hair on my arms stand straight. I stepped inside anyway. The air inside was stale, like it hadn't been opened to the world in weeks. Not musty, not moldy. Just still. Dead. The lights were dim, one bulb flickering in the ceiling above a bare living room. No pictures, no furniture except an old wooden chair in the corner, and the TV. It was just sitting there on the floor. No cables, no remote. A thick film of dust covered the screen, but the power light blinked red. I said, "Looks good." The man, Dorian, I assumed, didn't say anything. He stood near the entrance, one hand still behind the door, as if guarding it. I knelt down by the TV, trying to ignore how loud my own breathing sounded in the silence. I wiped a finger across the dust. Fresh. This thing hadn't been used in a while. "Do you have it plugged in somewhere?" I asked, standing up. He didn't answer that either. Just said, 50, right? "Yeah," I said. I pulled out the crumpled bills and held them out. He stepped forward and took them. Fast, like a reflex. Then he stepped back. "You're done," he said. I blinked. "Sorry. You're done here." His tone had changed. Flat. Cold. He started pushing the door open again, gesturing with his free hand. I stepped back, hands raised. "Okay, no problem." I moved fast. Out the door, down the porch steps, not daring to look back. As I got to my car, I could feel something crawling up my spine. The way he spoke, the way he looked at me. Not like a person, but like he was measuring something. I started the engine and drove without thinking. Didn't stop until I hit the gas station off Route 9, parked by the ice machine. Sat there, trying to understand what had just happened. That's when I noticed the email notification on my phone. Subject: TV pickup, confirmation. It was from a Gmail account. Dorian's, I guessed, but the name didn't say Dorian. It said Marissa Calloway. I opened it. The body was empty, just a shared calendar invite. 7 Naki Kirchening Christich, so PM. Location: that house. The title: Trial Number 3, Observation. I stared at the screen, unblinking, and my pulse throbbed in my neck. I opened the Craigslist chat history. The listing? Deleted. The profile, too. No trace. That night, I didn't sleep. Not even a little. I left the TV in my trunk and locked every door and window in my duplex. At some point around 3 a.m., I turned on the porch light and just sat in the dark, watching the tree line behind my yard. 2 days later, I worked up the nerve to call the sheriff's office, just to check if there had been any reports or incidents on that street. They told me the property had been foreclosed over a year ago, vacant since, still under bank ownership, no current tenant on file. I asked if they'd send someone to check it out. They said they would. Never got back to me. A week later, I went to open the TV, thinking maybe I could at least test it, get something out of the whole mess. There was a piece of paper taped to the back, tucked just behind the frame. Looked like it had been torn from a notebook. One line, handwritten. "You weren't supposed to leave." I got rid of the TV the same day, left it by the dumpsters behind the hardware store. I've never told anyone in Rockford about this. Not my coworkers, not my landlord, not even the friend I stayed with when I couldn't go back to my place that night. Because here's the thing that keeps me up now, even 3 years later. That wasn't a robbery. It wasn't some sketchy seller trying to scam me. It was a test. And if that was trial number 3, who made it to trial number 2? What happened in trial number 4? And what exactly did I pass by walking through that door? Or fail by walking out?
If these stories sent a chill down your spine, go ahead and tap that like button and subscribe for more eerie tales. What would you do if you were caught in one of these unsettling situations? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear what's on your mind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.